My name is Chris Ostetter, and I am a three-year senior from Boston, Massachusetts. Embracing new ideology, whether it's cultural or environmental, shouldn't be challenging, but for most people, it is. It became certainly difficult for me in my adolescent years, living in 3 different countries over the course of my life. I was blessed to be born in London, lucky to move to Hong Kong, and at age 8, even more fortunate for the opportunity to go to junior boarding school in the United States my 7th grade year. These significant changes throughout my life have afforded me a unique opportunity to develop a sense of perspective and an appreciation for acceptance of unique culture. I was born in London in the summer of 2002. Practically as a baby, I developed a thick British accent, which has fully faded, evidently. I loved every aspect of London. My parents thought it was a very ideal city to raise their kids, and honestly, it was a very euphoric time in my life looking back. My father and I loved exploring the wonders of the greatly historical city. Typically, every Saturday or Sunday, we would venture off to various world-renowned museums or go to one of London's many attractions, such as the London Eye, St. Paul's Cathedral, or even iconic stores such as Harrods, etc. Overall, my time in London was short-lived, yet very influential to my character and persona. Hong Kong is where my life really changes. I had just turned 8 when our family of 5 moved to the west side, Pak Fu Lan region. I found myself in a constant state of culture shock at the time, and I couldn't quite believe how different everything was compared to London in America. I was a young British-American boy trying to find himself on the most densely populated island in the world. At first, this self-predicament affected how I perceived Hong Kong. I was super unhappy my first couple years, and I couldn't quite understand why I was living in such a different city from what I was used to. Certain ways of life in Hong Kong started to grow on me. School was also very different from London. During a morning meeting, I would watch stray water buffaloes casually stroll near heavy traffic in small herds. I was at an international school, so there were so many kids from many different countries such as Britain, Australia, France, Switzerland, you name it. The diversity in expats was quite simply astounding in Hong Kong. We learned in the metric system, which was far easier than the imperial system. There were no quizzes, only large tests at the end of each month after a unit was taught. This was very nerve-wracking for me because my academic well-being was very important to me and my family, and I was genuinely struggling in a modified school system. It wasn't until I began my summers in America that I began to truly appreciate the wonders of the culture where I resided. My American friends and family were fascinated with the fact that I lived in China, as they would say. I would try to explain that I didn't live in China, rather Hong Kong, which was independent at the time. However, this didn't bother me at all. My American friends thought my life was cool. I guess that's what made me begin to see it that way too. I gradually started to adapt and accept Hong Kong's culture. I began to appreciate Hong Kong's uniqueness. I understood that most people never have had the opportunity to experience living outside their home state, let alone their country. When I knew it was going to be my final year there, I was unconditionally grateful for my time there, but was very eager to go off to junior boarding school in the States at 13 years old. I am forever thankful for the gained perspectives, stellar food, and the way it opened my eyes to apparent cultural differences. Hong Kong changed me for the better. There we go.
Hi, my name is Regine Decassard, and I'm a 4-year senior from New York. I used to despise the album, Michael Jackson's Biggest Hits. I loved the songs on the album. However, whenever I heard my mother turn on Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, I'd feel a chill run down my spine. This song played every time my mother combed my unruly hair. It was the time for the worst 5 hours all over again. Hair day. As a first-generational child from Haiti, I was born with what I thought was the worst ugliest hair imaginable, 4C hair. I'd kick, scream, and cry as my mother would try and tame my curls with a comb. By the end, I'd sniffle and hug my mother, hopefully making up for the torture I had put her through. As time went on, I began to hate my hair. It was curly and coily in different places, and I could never get it to be as straight as the other girls at school. However, with time, I've grown to love my hair and all of its curls and coils. Firstly, being a black woman at a PWI, a predominantly white institution, has its many challenges. Most of the time at school, I keep my hair in protective styles, such as box braids, twists, crochet hair, sew-ins, and weaves. These different styles have protected my hair and helped me maintain growth. On the rare occasion, I leave my hair out. However, a big question still lingers to this day. What on earth am I going to do with my hair? Now you may be wondering, what do you mean, Reggie? Can't you just brush it? No, absolutely not. I can't even begin to describe the hair journey I've had at Suffield, figuring out which protective style works best for me, or trying to reach faculty to see if any of them could supervise me to get my hair done. Shout out to Mr. Booth and Mrs. Warren for definitely helping me out. Hair care is extraneous, especially if you have your hair out, and sometimes the style does not even work. From personal experience, I've had many instances where I'd be referred to as a baboon's butt or Einstein. As a woman growing up in this world, none of these things are nice to hear, especially if it's about your appearance. Another fact I'd like to add is the amount of time and effort I put into a hairstyle, only to be told by my peers that I look ghetto or I look busted. When I'm fortunate enough to do more modeling shoots, some of my earlier shoots had me doing my own hair, or for either no one knew how to do my hair or the hairstylist would refuse to. However, I believe that part of why I've grown to love my hair so much is the woman today that I've grown so close to. My girls, Ryan, Cassie, Nyla, and Reagan, have taught me more about how to love myself and others, even with the hair that I thought was unmanageable. With the accounts of this summer, I want to reiterate something that I haven't heard in a long time. Black women are beautiful. You're beautiful with your curly hair, your coils, your afro. Our skin is made from the sun, strung with gold and finished with grace and beauty. We are beautiful in every shape and in every way. Loving myself is a process. Some people take days while others take decades. However, in a society that has put black women down for so long, I'm learning how to love and live in my own skin. As in my favorite song from Michael Jackson's biggest hits, PYT, I now honestly believe I'm a pretty young thing.
Hi, I'm Ryan Jones. I'm a two-year senior from Kingston, Jamaica, and today I'm going to read a supplementary essay I sent to UCLA. The prompt was as follows. Life challenge essay, 2 pages max. Describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? Things to consider. A challenge could be personal or something you have faced in your community or school. Why was the challenge significant to you? I chose to write about the portrayal of body image in social media and my struggles with my own body insecurities. At this National Eating Disorders Awareness Week, I thought it was only fitting I read it. 165 pounds, stretch marks, body fat, armpit chub, body hair, thicker thighs, broad shoulders. Society tells me all of these physical traits make me less than the photoshopped Instagram model who is paid to sit and look pretty, less than the girl who is suffering from an eating disorder, but because she's thin, this is overlooked, and she's therefore loved. Why has society made me feel unloved or unworthy? Why has society glorified being skinny to the point where people become appendages to the capitalist industries that profit from our insecurities? Why has average become undeserving? I am 17 years old, 5 feet 6 inches, and still growing, 165 pounds. Growing up in a largely conservative and conformist Caribbean society, as I'm growing into myself, I can say firsthand body image issues could be the cause of my declining self-esteem and my exponential downfall in love for myself. Wow, you look like you've lost weight is a common greeting you'll get from your Caribbean aunties or people who barely know you. Seemingly innocent on their part and understanding that their intentions were nothing but pure makes you realize, did I lose or gain weight? I hadn't even realized. Subconsciously eating less in public, being afraid of being ostracized and shamed just for wanting to be satisfied or as your health needs dictate. I think you've had enough. That looks like a lot. Are you sure you can eat all of that? Oh no, if you eat too much, you're going to get fat. And my favorite, I think we should do some exercise to burn this all off. The internalized fat phobia that is now ingrained in my bias about others comes from my own insecurities. Why has it taken me 17 years to understand that fitting into the mold that society wants you to fit in is not you? Confidence is beauty, beauty is self, and if your invalidation of your self-worth is based on the numbers on a scale, you will inevitably never be satisfied with yourself. Social media plays directly into our insecurities, making us believe that because our hips are too wide and our stomachs aren't perfectly slim and hourglass shape with a little bit of tone and slim arms and a larger bust, that we can't be beautiful. Why would you be beautiful if you don't look like that? How the media portrays girls and women visually and in print is unrealistic and creates a fantasy for many young women. We need to address how body image is perceived and the stigma around plus-size women in schools and in the wider community. In school, it's a more subtle sense of phobia in which females with thicker body features tend to be objectified more, especially when wearing clothing that shows more skin on a thicker woman than it would on a slimmer woman. We're perceived as promiscuous, and we will be the first to be called out for our shorter, more revealing articles of clothing. There is a stigma around fatness. This is bolstered by an assumption that bigger bodies equates to obesity and unhealthiness. I advocate for this irrational generalization to be stripped from society and the need to focus on how standard body images can affect people's mental and physical health. An abnormal body image can lead to depression, social anxiety, and various eating disorders. Approximately 80% of women are self-conscious about their body image and think negatively about how they look. 70% of normal-weighted women want to be thinner. Over 50% of Americans aren't happy with their current weight. According to adolescent statistics recorded by the Park Nicolette Melrose Center, over 80% of 10-year-olds are afraid of being fat. 53% of 13-year-old American girls are unhappy with their bodies. This number grows to 78% by the time girls reach 17. By middle school, 40 to 70% of girls are dissatisfied with 2 or more parts of their body. Why are girls who are in their physical developmental process concerned about the number on the scale? This is hugely detrimental to their self-image. Body image development stems from societal beauty ideals, which are affected by socio-cultural channels such as media, family, and peers. These channels can solidify personal negative messages that affect bodily dissatisfaction and satisfaction, which can lead to unnecessary dieting, eating disorders, and other unhealthy practices. I put into practice being self-aware with the language used to describe myself and others. We tend to project our insecurities onto others, which in turn promotes unhealthy practices. I focus on providing women and men with mindful practices on how to engage in a productive conversation that pushes for inclusivity regarding body image, whether this is in the form of a blog like the Unplugged Collective or an Instagram page posting motivational messages over a few days to keep a constant flow of uplifting conversation about body image. Body image is defined as one's subjective perception of one's physical appearance. Our public critical expressions of and internal dissatisfaction with others' appearances have created divides in our society, putting people into boxes labeled skinny, average, or fat. The amazing thing about the internet is that your words can be read or heard, or our voices heard even when we are absent or far away. Spreading a message of body positivity and loving the body that grants you the gift of life, I believe nobody should feel the need to hate themselves when essentially we're all human beings fighting for whatever meaning of life pertains to us. Body positivity is challenging how society views the body, promoting the acceptance of all bodies, helping people build confidence and acceptance of their own bodies, and addressing unrealistic body standards. Lastly, be proud of wherever you are in your journey to love yourself. In a society that profits from your self-doubt, loving yourself is a rebellious act. Thank you.
My favorite thing about Suffield Academy is how driven everyone is in such a wide variety of disciplines. Whether it be athletics, theater, music, academics, or any of the other activities offered, we all share a common goal of becoming the best we can be in our respective areas. It has been a blessing to be a part of a community so dedicated to excellence, and I wish I would have started my time here as a freshman rather than the 1 year I have as a postgraduate. Today, I wanted to share something with you all that I have devoted a lot of time working to understand since I became serious about my pursuit of basketball at a high level. This concept is not basketball specific or even sport specific, but it is something that everyone who is passionate about achieving a goal that might require overcoming adversity can benefit from learning about. If I asked the 400 students at Suffield Academy to define the word grit for me, I feel confident that I would get many different answers. Some might use the words mental toughness or perseverance in their definition, and they wouldn't be wrong, but they would not be fully encapsulating the meaning of the word. I was introduced to the concept of grit about 2 years ago when my dad suggested I read a book sensibly titled Grit by Angela Duckworth. This 300-page book discussed the importance of effort over natural ability, the connection that exists between interest, conviction, and hope, seeing things through the end, and intelligent and intuitive goal setting. This was a lot for me to wrap my head around, but I saw the value in it, and I did my best to apply the lessons to adversity I faced in my own life, and specifically in my athletics career. I focused on persevering through injuries and other obstacles by trying to remember my end goals, but it was hard because I did not yet truly understand how to have grit. It wasn't until midway through my senior year that I truly started understanding what grit was about and how to practice it. I saw a TikTok of a guy running through the street with his shirt off, screaming about how he was running 20 miles in 105-degree heat and 90% humidity. His reasoning? Because no one else is willing to do it. I thought the dude was out of his mind, but something about his determination and look in his eyes was inspiring to me, so I did some more research into him. His name is David Goggins, an ex-Navy SEAL, ultramarathon runner, triathlete, author, and motivational speaker. I watched many more clips of him on YouTube and became inspired by his attitude and how he could not and would not let anything stand in his way. I later stumbled into an audiobook version of his autobiography and finished all 14 hours over the next 2.5 days. David Goggins grew up in an abusive household in rural Indiana where he faced extensive racism. After fleeing with his mom and facing a childhood in poverty, David attempted to join the Navy, but ultimately failed out of training. In the years that followed, Goggins became divorced and was just making enough to afford rent. In his book, Goggins said this was when he turned his life around. He realized that he had every excuse to blame his circumstances for how his life had gone to this point, but he chose to use those struggles as fuel to overcome his fears. Goggins quit his job and re-enlisted in the Navy, vowing to conquer every fear he had in life by looking each and every one dead in the eye. He survived Hell Week, fueled by his dedication to succeed and become a Navy SEAL. He didn't sleep for 6 days. He ran 14 miles with broken shins by duct taping his legs to prevent the bones from emerging. He passed all of the brutal swim tests while suffering from pneumonia. He had never done anything like this before in his life, but he did it all through sheer willpower. This is when the lessons from Angela Duckworth's book started to sink in for me. Goggins said in his book that your mind is so much stronger than you think, and conquering those mountains in your life is purely mental. I finally realized the definition of grit. Grit is when you understand that you are only physically limited by what you tell yourself your limits are. Since I came to this realization, I have done my best to apply this mindset to my life in whatever form it may take. I also hope that each and every one of you will have an opportunity to find grit in your own unique way. Next time you think you've reached your limit, mental or physical, ask yourself if you can push further. Next time you face failure, think about grit and what it means to you. This could be the moment that you discover something about yourself that you didn't know was there, hidden deep down.
Hi, my name is Reagan Russell. I'm 18 years old and I'm a 4-year senior from Nassau, Bahamas. As I walk into the living room of my grandmother's home in rural Virginia, I am greeted by the face of Blanche Maud Johnson, my great-great-grandmother, a runaway slave. Although she passed away decades before my birth, a large part of who I am today can be attributed to her struggles, to the hardships she faced, to her ability to endure. In recognizing this, I celebrate her while simultaneously standing on the shoulders of her burdens. This is a weight that I will carry with me all my life. Although many of my ancestors passed away decades before my birth, I've always yearned for an understanding of their existence. Having read Maya Angelou's Still I Rise, I've lived by the words, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. This poem remains one of my greatest inspirations, and living its message on a daily basis is one of the greatest honors that I could ever receive. I hope to pass on the baton given to me by my great-great-grandmother, to future generations of Black women, inspiring them to live out the dreams of their ancestors while nurturing their own. As Black women, we are often taught to bear the burdens of others. This includes the burdens of our ancestors who've passed before us. They endured sleepless nights of torture during the Middle Passage. They suffered physical, verbal, and mental abuse from their masters once they arrived in the New World. They were stripped of their voices. They fought for our freedom. So it is clear to see why we, as Black people, feel indebted to them. Black women, in particular, bear this burden uniquely due to our intersectionality. We are expected to live up to typical female stereotypes. This includes being passive and gentle. On the other hand, we are expected to live up to typical stereotypes of Black people. This includes being lazy, loud, and dangerous. Therefore, the Black woman has no home in either of the groups that she belongs to. She is too Black to be woman and too woman to be Black. As a result, she lives as a walking contradiction. Her burdens are linked to her status as both a racial minority and a member of a marginalized gender. My great-great-grandma, my great-grandma, my grandma, my mother, and I have all lived completely different lives. The common denominator is that they have each been tainted with the stain of America's greatest sin, slavery. Some stains are more potent than others. Despite my love for Maya Angelou's Still I Rise, I challenge its accuracy. After deep reflection, I have concluded that I am not the hope and the dream of my great-great-grandma Blanche. This is because she could not have dreamed of where I am now or who I have become. A Black girl not only navigating a predominantly white New England boarding school, but thriving in it. A Black girl making art, challenging stereotypes, speaking the truth, and breaking the glass ceiling with every step that she takes. Great-great-grandma Blanche was denied the resources and the opportunity to have such a dream. I do not want my descendants to fulfill my hopes and dreams. Instead, I want their hopes and dreams to surpass my own. My one hope for them is that their dreams go beyond my own imagination. I want their existence to be a testament to the struggles of the past, the accomplishments of the present, and the possibilities of the future. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joaquin Street and I'm a 3-year senior from the Philippines. Some of you may know me and some of you don't, so today I'm going to talk to you about my identity. From a young age, I've always identified myself as a Pinoy. I've lived around Filipino culture my whole life, as my father is full Filipino and my mother has lived in the Philippines her whole life. Although the language spoken at home was English, my childhood had heavy influence from Filipino culture. I grew up eating traditional foods like adobo, lechon, and halo-halo. While both my parents worked, I was taken care of by what is commonly known as a nanny. During my upbringing, I had different nannies and each of them were just as important as the last. They were crucial to the development of my identity going forward. The people around my house growing up are what made me Filipino. I learned the dialect from them, but they also taught me so many lessons that I carry with me to this day. The people around me during my childhood were vital in shaping me as an individual. My family created an incredible environment for me growing up, and I could not think of a better way to thank them. They gave me the tools that I needed to succeed in my academic and social journeys. Growing up with 2 brothers who were more than 10 years older than me taught me how to be humble. Being the youngest in the group, I was always given special treatment from my parents, which I admit are one of the perks of being the youngest. But being the youngest also came with a lot of responsibility for me because I always wanted to be better than my brothers. Even though I like to think of myself as the favorite of my parents, they were always fair. Having many different arguments and conflicts with my brothers helped me build my character and also taught me how to pick my battles. I really valued the many people who raised me during my childhood because without them, I would not be the person I identify as today. Being around a plethora of people from different backgrounds had such an impact on my life. The most important lesson I learned from having that many people around was to treat everyone with respect, regardless of where they came from, how wealthy they are, or how they look. Growing up, I always thought that I had the same values as my peers. But as I grew older, I started to learn about the different aspects of life that separated me from the people around me. It was not until I went to the United States for boarding school that I learned that not everyone had these values that I thought were fundamental in everyone's identity. Boarding school is a part of my identity because it's exposed me to a different part of society and helped me develop my social identity. I was able to meet even more people who contributed to my identity by helping me understand the different cultures around the world. Boarding school opened my eyes to the different personalities as well as taught me how to adjust to a different environment. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hunter Tran, and I'm a 3-year senior from Vietnam. So most people on campus know me for doing artistic things, but today I want to show you what I've been doing throughout quarantine, which is baking. So it's something I've recently picked up and something that I really enjoy doing, and I usually share it with my sister, my aunt, and my neighbors. So here's a baking video of me doing trying to make monkey bread, so enjoy. Thank you.
Hello, today I'm going to be attempting to make monkey bread. First, butter a bun pan with softened butter. Don't mind me using a grill brush here. Into a measuring cup, add some milk, water, sugar, melted butter, that's clumpy, and some yeast. Then whisk it and then set aside. Next, in a large mixing bowl, sift in tapioca flour. This stuff gets everywhere, so I'm literally breathing in fumes of flour. Some people think sifting is a scam, but I like sifting, so I'm doing it here. And then sift in the all-purpose flour and salt. I'm using tapioca flour and all-purpose flour here because it gives the dough a really nice chewy texture, so yeah. So we're making the dough in the stand mixer here because frankly I'm too lazy to do it by hand. Put the machine on a low setting and slowly add in the milk mixture. You should see the dough starting to come together and form a cohesive mass, and oops, that is way too wet, so I'm going to be adding a bit more flour off camera. Turn the speed on to medium, and this dough is a lot stickier than your average monkey bread dough because I tweaked the recipe a little bit, so just trust me and go with it. Place the dough into a bowl that's greased with non-stick cooking spray. Cover the bowl with plastic wrap and then let the dough rise until it's doubled in size for about 1 to 2 hours. While you wait for the dough to rise, you can mix together cinnamon and brown sugar for the sugar coating. Hey look, our dough's a thick boy now. You can remove the wrap and take out your anger on the dough. It's pretty fun. Now you want to roll out tiny dough balls, dip it in butter, and then coat it in brown sugar, and then plop it into the bun pan, making sure to stagger the balls so that it forms this mosaic pattern. The annoying thing about this recipe is that you have to let it rise for a second time. And an hour has magically passed, so plop this bad boy into the oven at 350 degrees for about 35 minutes. And ta-da! You know it's done when the top is a deep golden brown and you can see the caramel sizzling and bubbling on the edges. And now we're gonna flip it onto a plate. And hey, that looks pretty decent. Making sure to get that close-up shot and zoom in on the caramel ooey gooiness. and I tried to elegantly take a piece out, but I completely butchered that shot. And it tastes pretty good, so there you go. And it's only been like, what, 3 hours? So, okay, bye.